how do you intend to gain possession of this land that you want, and how do you intend to get there?
It's a contribution that the black man made in this country, which amounts to 310 years of slave labor, for which we have never been given a dime or a cent, places a burden upon the American white man today for which the government should pay. Since we cannot live in peace together, mixed up on this continent, the alternative to that solution is to divide a separate part of this country into which our people can migrate, and in which the government again should supply us with the machinery and the tools necessary to establish our own independent society and our own independent country. And in this way, it will be creating a solution that the black man himself, our people, ourselves, can bring about if we have that capability. And for your clarification, because this has been brought up, some people say, well, why should the government do this? If this government can send billions of dollars to communist countries like Poland and Yugoslavia and to neutralist countries in Asia and Africa who have never made any contribution whatsoever to the sum net worth of this economy and country, and at the same time, this government feels that it is too much to set about something real to solve the problem for the slaves who made a greater contribution even than your people did, why the government doesn't even deserve to continue to function as a government.
What land is available that's not already possessed by others?
When you came to this country, the land was inhabited by the Indians, and you didn't have any problem then.
Free the land, battle cry in our freedom call. Political prisoners in the system, we say free them all. You hear the call, haters never wanna see you ball. But I'm a freedom fighter, I just wanna see them fall. Standing tall, cause we trapped in the system. They slapped us in prison, just a part of capitalism. I'm a revolutionary, I adapt to the system. I ain't playing with y'all haters, I come strapped when I kick them.
Black fist in the air as we walk through the door, representing Malcolm X and Assata Shakur. Queen Mother Moore, Batula, Shakur. Fight to free the land is what we doing it for. The struggle, the leader, for Huey, for Mia, Garvey Fred Hampton, General Hamisha, Grandmaster Teacher. He's blasting y'all, you're gonna feel it. The voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
We got to have thinkers that are going to direct us in terms of how we're going to be able to achieve the goal of liberation throughout the world. We have the same problem. That is neo-colonialism. We have no control over any area in which we live. Matter of fact, we have been diminished, and all of those things have happened under the American system of capitalism. That's why we're saying we want to break away and create our own, and have our own self-government, and have our own control over our lives.
You're listening to the Voices of New Afrika, where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. Free the land.
And we are live. My bag, I ain't even have us two ready to go. But yeah, we are live. The Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. Hold on, re-educate the miseducated. Hold on, what? It's educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. There we go. Let me get back on point. But yeah, I'm your host, Brother Prophecy. I'm joined. I am so honored to be joined by my comrade Kakaye Jamu and our grandmaster teacher, comrade Fadali. And man, we got us a jam-packed show. We got a lot of things we got to talk about. We're going to jump into it. But first of all, let me explain that we are part of something called the New African Independence Movement. And we advocate for land independence, self-determination, reparations, and all the good things that actually add up to real freedom, not pseudo freedom, not fake freedom, not a feel-good movement. We actually trying to get things done. And with that, we like to start the show off with we like to begin the show off. We're kind of like what's been going on, especially globally, domestically, however, and we got this segment called Around the World in Black Again at the Voices of New Afrika.
Live from Ida B. Wells City, spanning from Africa, Asia, all the way to the United States of America. This is Around the World in Black Again. It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on?
All right, Around the World in Black Again. I'm trying to get Grandmaster Teacher Mike up, and I can't get his mic up. Punch his mic, hit his mic, comrade. But yeah, Around the World, we've been talking a lot recently about what's been going on in Israel, and a lot of people be wondering, like, man, why y'all so focused on what's going on in Israel? And that train in the background just being real disrespectful to our program. That's cool. That's okay. Yeah, for some reason, your Grandmaster Teacher Mike ain't coming up. So yeah, saying up on it. So this is what I want you to do, comrade. Move your computer close to him, comrade. Move your computer close to him so he'll be able to pick up on your mic, like real close. Yeah, there we go. And just move over so you're in frame. There we go. So yeah, we want to talk about what's been going on in the world. This thing with Israel is escalating. A lot of people are dying. Really, you're seeing genocide right before our eyes. And I'm gonna go to Grandmaster Teacher, I hope, and give us some updates.
Yeah. So that's Palestine. What they call Israel is Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we began to understand that the Palestinian people are really in jail, they're really in prison. They're in prison on a small portion of Palestine that they once used to be a part of the whole, Palestinian nation. And since 1948, when the state of Israel was created and aided and abetted by the United States government at that time, Israel has been taken over the property and land of the other Palestinian people. But
What's up?
Okay.
You good? You can continue.
Okay, I can continue. Okay, so when we talk about Palestine, we got to understand that the Israeli government has taken over the territories of the Palestinian people. And for 56 years, they have held them in small areas such as the Gaza Strip, which is 145 square miles. And we got to begin to understand that, and that the West Bank, each one had Palestinian. The Gaza Strip has 2.3 million people, and the West Bank has 3.2 million. That's 5 million people that have been encased into small areas of land. They cannot do any farming. They cannot do anything that will allow them to have control. The Israeli government has them blockaded, and they have complete control over any movement inside or outside. And yet still, the people of Gaza Strip elected a government called Hamas, a movement that was created to contend against the Israeli government and its oppression and exploitation of the Palestinian people. And for 56 years, since 1967, the West Bank and Gaza Strip were taken over by the Israeli. So for 56 years, they are under control of the Israelis. And so anytime there's a battle or war, Israel will go in with its forces
and go in and exterminate as many people as they possibly can. And they're aided and abetted by the United States government. This is the first time a U.S. president has traveled during the time there was a war. Usually the U.S. tried to pretend like it's holding back, that it's going to be negotiated between the so-called two sides, and they're going to have a two-state government, two-state area. In other words, Palestine and Israel can exist alongside one another. But Israel has proven to be a settler colony, and they have continued since '67 to expand into the areas that supposedly was going to be a part of the two-state system. And they've organized kibbutz or settlements, just as much as in the United States when the white settlers moved throughout the United States to control the land. So the Palestinians are basically on reservations, or some people call it a apartheid system, because they're not allowed to move or go any direction. And Israel had control over the water and fuel and food and everything. Even the area that they were able to farm, they're not allowed to even farm on those areas in the Gaza Strip. Okay, so now we have all this propaganda. Well, last week we talked about propaganda. We have the same propaganda that is existing that does not tell you really what's going on, and it'll always combine the number of people killed. They've had 1,400 Israelis were killed and only 7, and then they said 4,000. They'll add them all together, said 5,000. But right now we know that there's over 5,000 Palestinians killed since the bombing, and more than 1,500 children of them were children that were killed. So that's one third, of the people that were killed by Israel bombing civilian areas. 1/3 of the people that were killed were children, and then we had the United States move ships into the area, saying that they're trying to push back on Iran. Iran has said they had nothing to do with whatever happened in Gaza and Israel and all that, but the United States and the European countries have already expanded it to where they got ships and things in the area of the Mediterranean, and their ships are being fired upon supposedly by Hezbollah or Yemen, forces that were supposed to be under the control of Iran. The reality is the people are struggling for themselves. They are not proxies of anybody. These people, the Palestinians, are not proxies of Iran, or Hezbollah are not proxies of Iran. These are people who are struggling to control their own land, their own territory, what's been allotted to them. And this was not an invasion of Gaza into Israel. Gaza is a part of Palestine. Israel, what they call Israel, is Palestine. And Gaza, when they went over, they broke through the gates, just like they got gates down in Mexico, around Mexico, trying to keep people from coming into the United States. They have actually gates, and they have what they call that a bombing system by which they are supposedly protecting themselves from rockets being fired and all that. And this was broken, and this is the reason why we're seeing the situation here is that Israel wants to destroy the Palestinian area of Gaza by eliminating as many people as they possibly can under the guise that they're fighting against Hamas, and they're going to eliminate Hamas. Each time that they have had any kind of situation, they've always gone in to try to eliminate the parties that are in control, that have some control over the mass of people and are helping the mass of people and are organized, and the mass of people have voted them into those positions of power that they do have, even though it's limited. So what we're finding out here is the United States has sent a contingent of 2,000 Marines that are going to be going in, try to go into Gaza to rescue what they call 200 so-called hostages. So these are captives that were taken as a result of Hamas being able to break through and go to their areas and punish some of those people who were creating settlements. Because these people had also had killed 248 Palestinians from January all the way up to the 7th of October. And so this is why Hamas was making this move. Also was making this move because 50 years ago, the Israelis came in and took over all these areas that were being inhabited by the Palestinians. They even killed leadership. They killed Arafat, who was the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. They bombed and killed many leaders of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, even though they have kind of tamed the Palestinian Authority under this 87-year-old leader, Abbas. But how did they get to that point? Because they eliminated the leadership that was elected by the people in those areas that they have colonized. And so here's where we are today. I saw a report from the Defense Secretary, Lord Austin, talking about why they justify bringing ships and stuff into the Mediterranean to protect Israel. And the president of the United States, Biden, came out with talking about $100 billion going to 14 million going to Israel, and they've poured billions of dollars of rockets and missiles and all those kind of things during this period of time that has allowed the Israelis to shoot up 8,000 missiles on an area that's 145 square miles. It's beyond imagination. And they have eliminated most of the buildings that people resided in and have forced the people to go south for their protection. But as they go south, they were bombing the areas that they had settled in the south, and they have a blockade that was and this is a shame for Egypt, that Egypt has cooperated with Israel to keep a blockade, to keep the people from even being able to go across the Egyptian border or anything they do to keep from being genocidal attacks to get away from the genocidal attacks of the Israeli government. So and the other thing is that they bombed a hospital. And they've already had bombed, had already killed many medical personnel, that were trying to help the people who were injured. And there are over 10,000 people who have been injured, who cannot be, they don't have any medical supplies or anything. They've eliminated the hospital's ability to even take care of the injured. And so here we are, and we're looking at our situation from our standpoint, the Republic of New Afrika. We are supporting all people who are fighting for their independence and fighting to gain control over their land and their resources. And this is one fight that we have to begin to understand that we must support. And Palestinians are protesting, and people who are against this are protesting all over the world now, and so how do you bomb and people who don't have any weapons? And Israel has more weapons than any country in that whole area, and the United States is giving them $3 billion a year, and mostly for military, weapons and all, those kind of things, and so. When we look at that, and then we see what's going on, even we have some Jewish people who are saying that should be a ceasefire. They had a demonstration in Washington D.C. They went and took over a building in Washington D.C. Friday, and 300 were arrested. For saying that they want to have peace. In other words, that they're against apartheid, which is what has been set up for the Palestinians in Israel. They're like being imprisoned by this system in which we see that they're, like I said, 8,000 or more bombs, and they're steadily bombing as the people are moving out. And over half of the population, over 1 million, have no place to stay. They have no place to run. They have no place. They have no food. They've allowed a few 20 trucks to go across the border, but they need 100 trucks a day to feed the people of Gaza. So even this is a farce that was led by Biden. And so Biden needs to go. Biden needs to, we're not into election system, but anybody that participating in the so-called American system of elections or whatever, should see that there's no difference between the Republicans and the Democratic Party, and that's why we're saying we're not a part of that, but we are supporting all those people who are being exploited by their system.
Definitely. And that's along with some of the things that you talked about. As you said, basically what's going on in Palestine right now is genocide. You're witnessing genocide, and the things that the United States and Biden is doing is making it, it's like complicit, allowing this to happen, and also, making sure that it continues. Case in point, just last week, the UN Council basically tried to pass a resolution that would create a ceasefire so they can aid the people, because there is a humanitarian crisis going on in Israel, in Palestine right now. And basically everyone agreed on this ceasefire, on this, pause in this war, so you could help the people, the thousands of children, that are dying over in Palestine now. Everybody agreed to this except the United States. In fact, the United States used their veto power to make sure that this didn't happen. They made sure, in other words, they could have a pause in the fighting now so the people can get the help that they need. They're supposed to be going on right now, but the United States of America said no. And the justification that they used is they said, well, this resolution did not address Israel's right to defend themselves, which in essence, what they're actually saying, that's a code word of saying Israel's right, so-called Israel's right to commit genocide on the Palestinian people. That's basically what they're saying. So we have to be careful, really careful about who we align ourselves with within these conflicts, because a lot of times our understanding of our belief system, our religious affiliation influences the way we look at these external foreign and many times domestic issues and events and things that happen all over the world, and it also influences our decisions. So we have to be correctly informed on what's going on, and not just buy into whatever type of propaganda it is, whether it is political propaganda or religious propaganda. We have to have actual facts, know the actual history, not just the mythology, not just the folklore, not just the things that the politicians have told us to believe, so they can justify the inhumane treatment of human beings, justify the taking of other people's land, justify the genocide of human beings, so they can take full control over the land. And we're going to be talking about exactly what they're doing and what that's called a little bit later on. But you like I've been saying, if you are supporting what the Zionists the Zionist political movement is doing right now in Palestine, what you are doing is you are, in essence, supporting genocide. A lot of people get cringed up when we talk like this, but because you believe that what's going on over there got something to do with Bible or prophecy or something like that. Let me tell you clear, for somebody who studied the history, that ain't got nothing to do with something that happened in the Bible. That is a political movement. And we can trace the history. The documentation is there. We understand when these individuals converted to this religious system. We understand the struggles that they had. You understand the big fight that they had over trying to resurrect a Hebrew language, which wasn't even spoken anymore. But they said, it will make them look more authentic if we can speak Hebrew. So they began to try to resurrect this language of Hebrew. And one of the biggest conflict they had was to try to convince their children to even study it. Even now, if you look at many rabbis, so-called rabbis, they don't even believe in the religion of Judaism. They don't believe in it. They'll even tell you they don't, because it wasn't theirs to begin with. They converted for a political reason, because they was trying, at a point in history, they were trying to be neutral of the crusade, this conflict between the Muslims and Christians. And these Europeans are saying, I don't want to be a part of that. And they utilized this in order to gain political power for themselves and created a movement that we know is Zionism. And it has allowed them to be very successful. Period. Very successful. And a lot of times when you even talk on this history, people come for you, condemn you, call you anti-Semitic, when that don't even make sense. That term doesn't even make sense under this context. So just to reiterate, my point earlier, when you are supporting the Zionist movement over in Palestine, you are supporting genocide. And I'm gonna go to this clip of the actual UN vote, the UN and show. And this is not only an example of colonialism, it's an example of neo-colonialism, because the ambassador to the UN from the United States is an African woman. And just to show, we ain't lying, we ain't making this up. This is what's going on when people are trying to stop the genocide, at least trying to get help for the people. These are the individuals who are preventing things from happening. These are the individuals who are preventing humanity to rise and allowing the genocide and the murder and these crimes against humanity to continue. So there it is.
Those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2023/773, please raise their hand. Will those against? Abstentions? The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the council.
Colleagues, the United States is disappointed this resolution made no mention of Israel's rights of self-defense. Every member state should condemn Hamas's terrorism and cruelty, and every member state should call on Hamas to cease its endless barrage of rockets against Israel. We are on the ground doing the hard work of diplomacy. And while we recognize Brazil's desire to move this text forward, we believe we need to let that diplomacy play out, especially when Secretary General Guterres, President Biden, Secretary Blinken, and regional actors are engaged in intensive dialogue on the very issues we are deliberating on today.
And Daddy, like I said, we ain't making up nothing. We're not making it up nothing. That's it. As you saw, everybody voted. Everybody said, you know what? We're gonna put a pause to this fighting so we can help the people. We can help the people. But no, the one hand that raised up said, no. Now a couple of people sustained, but the one hand that says no, was from the United States of America. And what's the justification? It didn't acknowledge Israel's right to defend themselves. They ain't defending themselves. They are committing genocide. Point blank. Before we move on, do we want to y'all got anything y'all want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think that when we are looking at, like you said, the genocidal war that's been waged by what's called the Israeli government, the Israeli so-called defense force, which is not a defense force. When it comes to Palestinians, it's an attack force. And once we look at that, then the United States, like I said, helped to create the state of Israel, helped to create all the things that we see that are happening to the Palestinians. And all we got to do is, and we look at the antagonism that you could hear from the media, the so-called regular media. I'm talking about NBC, ABC, CBS, that are all often talking about the victims of the so-called Hamas attack. And then every broadcast, they're going to bring somebody talking about their child or somebody that got husband or somebody that's gotten killed by the Hamas. But then there's no equal balance, when it comes down to the Palestinians. Every now and then, they will have a voice that come from, but it is something that is deadly force. I talk about the media and pushing for the Israelis, and every day they've been waiting for Israel to. We had 300,000 troops on the border of Gaza with a whole bunch of tanks and all that, and the media is trying to encourage, have been putting it on the news for them to go ahead and knock out these Palestinians under the name of trying to destroy Hamas. So they rather destroy the whole 2.2 million people instead of dealing with the Palestinians being the victims of all this whole thing that's happening. And so even though some of the stations that are not just for Israel, they're trying to say equal blame. There's no equal blame. There's no equal blame. The Israelis have not been under 56-year occupation by the Palestinians or by the Gaza people of Gaza or by the West Bank. It's the opposite. They have been committing genocide every day since June of 1967, when they had the so-called 5-day wars and they took over the lands of the Palestinian people that were remaining. Yeah, and we don't even talk about the 70% of the people that were forced to leave in 1948 when they created the state of Israel, and they had a war with the Arab states. And 70% of the people were forced to leave, Palestinians, and they destroyed, literally destroyed 465 villages in which those people lived, so they could not return. And so these people are in Jordan, they're in Egypt, they're in Morocco, they're all over the world. We're talking about the Palestinian refugees, who have a right to go back to Palestine, to go to the land which they had, that they were living in. And these are Zionists, and we want to define Zionism. Zionism started in the 1890s. It became a movement under Theodore Herzl, who was a leader who coined the phrase of so-called the Jews, European Jews, that coined the phrase Zionism, what Zionism means to return. How are they going to return when they have not been into Palestine for at least 1,000 years, at least 2,000 years, going back to the so-called days of Christ, if you believe in Christ. And they were run out by the Romans and by the Babylon, the ones that we're talking about. But the other people, all the people, the Hebrew people were not forced out. There were Hebrew people who remained citizens of Palestine and lived alongside the Arab, brothers and sisters. And so here we are. We're looking at this situation. In the last 75 years, Israel was given land by the United States and Britain. Well, actually, they ran Britain out. Britain abandoned Palestine, which they had ruled since 1900. You know, and when the so-called Christian nation went back in to take over what they call the Holy Land. And then they created all these other states. They conquered all these other states like Syria and all that. And Syria and all those countries did not get their independence back until at the end of World War II in 1946. Most of them, and the Europeans under Lawrence, T.E. Lawrence, called Lawrence of Arabia, created the state of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was a part of Africa before it was created in 1932. So they created these states, and these states, in other words, and then they conquered Palestine because it was a holy part of the Holy Land, Jerusalem, where Christians and Muslims and Hebrews had lived for a couple thousand years since the so-called time of Christ. And so when we look at that whole situation, we see that this was a bold attempt by the settler colony, the United States, and we define settler colony as being a place where Europeans came in and came to take over a land and put the people on reservation. You committed genocide.
Well, let's make sure we don't get
go ahead.
ahead of ourselves, because we're going to talk about that and more. But yeah, I mean, you talked about a lot of things. One thing before we move on to the next thing we want to get into, but you talked about how a lot of people, and I was listening to a sister the other day, she actually got fired from a media job because she had a show, a progressive show, part of a progressive show, that basically was covering this conflict, and they told her, well, you got to be fair and balanced. You got to give, equal coverage to both sides, both perspectives. And she was like basically saying, we don't cover the point of view of the settler colony, right. Because this is not an equal conflict. Where people always say, well, you want to talk about both sides like this is equal fight, like this is about equality. Like, well, you got bad people on both sides of it. That ain't the situation. You have people who have been invaded, conquered, and genocide has been placed upon their door. And then you have them trying to fight back against this oppressor nation. So you don't sit up there like, oh, well, yeah, both sides are wrong and we just want peace. No, you got to understand the nuances to this situation, because it's not just a question of oh, well, he hit me, I hit him, both of us wrong. No, this is an oppressive nation. This is a group of people who came into a country that was occupied by other people, and they took their land from them, and they pushed them into like you said, open air prison. They're in prison in their own home. They can't even leave. As you talked about, you said only 10%. There was 10% are allowed to even go out and get a job. So 90% can't even make a living for themselves. These are the conditions, and if they try to leave, they can get shot down. All over Israel, you have their military, and their military is so strong because of the aid that the United States has given to them. So you have people who have been oppressed. If we want to talk about Nat Turner, we don't say, well, the slave masters was wrong, but Nat Turner was wrong. Hell no, we don't talk about it in terms like that. We say Nat Turner was standing up for his people. He was fighting against oppression. He was fighting for humanity. And that's not the way we frame this. So damn them people say, you got to talk about both of them wrong. No, the hell they ain't. The oppressor is never wrong for fighting against the oppressor. The enslaved is never wrong for fighting against the slave master. And we can never accept that. We can never legitimize the settler colony, the oppressor, the colonizer. We never legitimize their government and what they're doing in the genocide that they are putting on people. People today, they don't say, well, we got to talk about what Hitler did wrong and the Jewish people did wrong. You don't never hear people talking about that. You just hear people saying Hitler was a bad, and you better not say anything good about Hitler. You better not say it. It can be legitimate, but you better not say it, or they're gonna condemn you. So no, we're using that same logic right here, and it's even more legit. It's even more real right here and more relevant for this particular case. We don't do that. We don't give them any talk about balance. This is balance. You are an oppressor. You are a colonizer. I don't even deal with the religious terminology like that, but if it's a such thing as evil, that is what you are. Period. And I ain't mean to go off on a tangent like that, but we've been talking about a lot of these terms, and a lot of times people come to me and they say, I just switch subject real quick, but a lot of people come to me and they say, man, y'all talking about exploitation, colonialism, imperialism, and all of these type of things. What in the world do that mean, man? Kind of going over our heads. So you know what we say? We educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I got it right that time. We say we do that, so we need to really make sure we do that. And we're gonna go into a segment where we deal with this terminology. We call this the term of the week. New African term of the week. Let's get into that.
From capitalism, imperialism, dialectical, historical materialism. This is the New African term of the week.
And the New African term of the week is something we've been talking about, and it is settler colonialism. And I'm gonna turn this over to Grandmaster Teacher. What is settler colonialism? And let's just go break it down. Take it away.
So basically when we talk about, we're talking about white settlers, European settlers that left their nation under the guise of finding a homeland. And so in America, the 13 colonies, they were settlers. In other words, Britain sent a lot of people left Britain or England because they said they were being persecuted religiously or whatever. They gave a definition. But when they came over, the land was occupied by native people that they called Indians. And these Indians basically did not recognize that these people were coming to try to take over, their country. So they helped them, and we got Thanksgiving, what they call Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, get ready to come up. As a result of them helping these white settlers to exist in what they came to call the United States of America, these same settlers turn around and poison the people through giving them blankets that had smallpox. They did everything they could. They had wars and had them pitting against each other and had several wars and things. And ultimately, they took over the land, and then they forced them to live on reservations. This is the same thing that's happening in Palestine, a place they call Israel. They've done the same thing. They've come in. The people they were allowed to come in, and they created their state in 1948. From the UN and the United States. Ralph J. Bunche, neo-colonialist African, basically made some agreements with the Arabs to allow them to come in, allow the Zionist Jews to come in. And there was a war because there was a misunderstanding. In other words, they lied to them, and then they were given like supposedly 1/4 of the land of Palestine, and now they got more than 3/4 of the land of Palestine as a result of their aggression against the people of Palestine. In 1967, they took over what they call the West Bank and Gaza and the part of the
Hold on,
South.
comrade.
Yeah.
You just dropped out.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
oh, the battery died. Okay, yeah. So you probably gonna have to share the screen with
So
hold on, get it. Well, yeah, and basically you was talking about settler colonialism, and I'm gonna give you the definition. Matter of fact, this definition, you can pull this definition up from the internet. This ain't even one of our definition, but I thought it fit. It says settler colonialism can be defined as a system of oppression based on genocide and colonialism that aims to displace a population of a nation, oftentimes indigenous people, and replace it with a new settler population. In other words, you have a group of people who say, you know what, I like that land over there. I like that land. Just like you see somebody who, a carjacker, say, I like your car. I like that car right there. And I want to go get that car. And they go and they invade the land and they commit genocide of the people, or they kick the people out, or they move the people out. However they can do it, give them smallpox or germ warfare, biological, chemical warfare, warfare, however they choose to do it. But they displace the people who were originally on the land, and then they replace it with themselves. They begin to build and they begin to live themselves. That is a settler colony. That is how this is what you have in the United States of America. You have a group of people who came from somewhere else, Europe, and said, you know what, we got people over here, but I don't give a damn about them people. They can die, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to try to replace the indigenous people of the Americas. And that's the exact same thing that happened in Israel. And it's another term that is connected with that. It's called manifest destiny that you was talking about earlier. And I think you own with Kakai right now. So
manifest destiny is when this population of settlers decided that they were going to not only just have their 13 colonies, but George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all them coined the same manifest. They're going to go from the East Coast to the West Coast. They're going to take over the whole continent of North America, and they were able to declare themselves in white. You know, where God gave the white man the right to take over the whole of all the land that is owned by Native people, and so they call it manifest destiny. That is, it started a movement throughout the North America, particularly what they call the United States of America, to take over. And they went and they created wars and took over and defeated and killed off the buffalo, you know, the meat of the native people's food. And they even killed, and when it came up to the Comanche, they killed 40,000 horses to keep them from being able to ride and fight a war with them. And so ultimately they settled the native population on reservations. Really, if we talk about this, the first real settler colony is the United States of America. And when the Europeans went elsewhere, they didn't call it reservation, they called it native reserves on the African continent. You know, when they went to Kenya and places like that, and they forced the people to live in land areas that genocide was taking place. You know, because these people were not able to move freely on their land or to do their farming or whatever. They had to work for the Europeans, and the Europeans took over and made all these settlements and all over Africa. And we know the most recent thing was Zimbabwe and South Africa. Zimbabwe, they still have settlers, even though they won their independence in 1980. South Africa, the settlers are still controlling all the wealth and the land of South Africa. And so, but the United States is the first major area where Europeans were able to come in and take over to take over the land of the people and to put their power over the people. Matter of fact, they would even take the children away from the native people and put them in white folks' hands to destroy the culture, the people, destroy the language of the people. And so we know that also from that they were able to do this because they came over and grabbed us from Africa and put us over here to farm the land, to create the wealth of the America, of North America, of the United States of America, and they were so greedy among themselves that they had a war, to end slavery because the North decided that that they needed labor, free, and not free labor, but so-called labor of where you got money, where you giving people wages. It became chattel slavery to wage slavery. And then on our account, they pushed us back on the plantation, which we had barely any kind of wealth, any kind of wages on the plantation. And the ones they couldn't put back on plantations, they put in prison and put in jail. So this is settler colonialism, and if we put it in graphic terms of what it is, so that people can understand that. And so Israel, and you can hear the language of the people, such as Biden, saying Israel was a democracy like the United States. In other words, with a democracy for white people, for Europeans, just like the European settlers who became Zionists, the Zionism that followed the model of the settler colonialism of the United States, and they have taken over most of the land from the Palestinian people and have gotten them on reservations. And sometimes, and even within Israel itself, they got because in Jerusalem, what they call East Jerusalem at one time, you have a majority of Muslim Palestinians in East Jerusalem, and they're locked in their homes right now. As a result of what Europe is trying, what the Zionists are doing to Gaza. They're getting ready to exterminate as many Palestinians in Gaza as they can, and try to eliminate. But people who are subject to genocide will not die out. They're going to fight. And this is what Hamas is all about. This is what the Palestinian Liberation Organization was all about at one time. And so, in spite of all the effort that they're making to kill off as many of the Gazans as they can, it's going to come back because the United States is also going to fall as a result because it has put itself in too many war situations. And that's why we talk to people about the Democrats and Republicans. And there's no party that has taken our interests at heart, African people's interests at heart. And matter of fact, almost all the wars that the United States has gone into to exercise genocide have been by so-called Democratic presidents. And Biden is according to even his partner Trump, is stupid because he went over there, while they're in the midst of war, where the United States president has been stayed out of being identified totally complete, even though they were still supporting Israel, doing those things. Now, not only that, he's ordered ships to go into the Mediterranean to fight against the people of Gaza. To allow the Israelis to go in and kill off the population of Gaza.
Yeah, that's all of the history behind why we're at this place where we are right now. It's simple, but it does take some studying. When we first started the Voices of New Afrika, I always said that if we don't watch it, you're gonna have to be a historical guru to be able to understand what's going on in the world today. Number one, in the battle in Palestine right now, there's one question that can clarify all of this stuff. If you pose that to the Palestinians, and if you pose this question to the so-called Israelis, then you'll understand who's fighting for what. If you ask a Palestinian where are they from, can they go back to where they came from, they're gonna tell you this is their home. This is where I'm from. If you ask the so-called Israelis, Jews, where they're from, they can all point back to Europe. As the one person who coined the phrase Zionist is from, he's a Hungarian European. You get a number of different Europeans that make up this so-called group of people, Jews, from all over Europe. We have to understand that these people are the settlers, and the people who are fighting for their land and their liberation and their freedom are the people who was part of the PLO before the United States, Britain, France, and all the European brothers and sisters of the Israelis played a part in demolishing the PLO. But because their ideology and philosophy for freedom and liberation in their own territory is based on truth, that will stand the test of time. So this will never die out, because there will always be people who identify with their land and want to get control back. What we don't want to be a part of is a part of a neo-colonialized system that uses our faces and our image to spout off the propaganda for the Israelis. And because we're in the belly of the beast, we must stand strong and understand that our message should be for one of freedom, one of liberation, one of independence. And we should understand that, because that's what we're fighting for here in the United Snakes of America. It's very simple. Who don't belong there and who belongs there.
Definitely. Great point. And it is really important. Every time we bring up that whole Democrat Republican thing, it's really important that we understand that neither one of these parties or wings or whatever have our best interests in their minds and heart, and we don't get wrapped up into a struggle that don't have anything to do with us. Because when you do that, you're only being used to gain power for other people. That's important. And then we engage in the conflict that we should not be engaged in. We're sharing perspectives that is not our perspective. They're the perspective of the former slave master, of the colonizer. And that's easy to do when you're under the authority and hegemony of an oppressive, exploitive power force. So that's why we have to educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated, so we don't align ourselves with things that are not within our best interest. We don't align ourselves with the colonizer. It is so important that we do that, and we don't adopt those perspectives that's anti-humanity, that is anti-freedom, that is anti the people. And it's really easy to do because our educational system here has been designed and is controlled. I won't say our educational system, but the educational system that most of us are under has been created and designed by the oppressor, by the colonizer, by the settler colony. And they design it in a way that will educate us or miseducate us to the point where we identify with what's in their best interest, not ours. That's one thing we have to understand. Our best interest is not their best interest. Their best interest is not our best interest. We have to deal with that. I know we want to live in this idealistic kumbaya world where everything is just fine and great, but that is not the reality. That is not the reality. What's good for these United Snakes of America is not good for African people who are here in America. It's just not. And that's a reality that we got to get through our mind, but we have to be properly educated before we can even understand that point. Because we are being, I was looking at the Breakfast Club. What's it, Charlemagne the God? And I'm like, what the hell you talking about, bro? And I don't usually just call out people like that, but I'm listening to him. He's like saying, well, why can't we just do peace? Why can't we just get peace? I ain't for people dying, period. And I'm not either, but he's up there saying, like, well, we just want to be neutral on this thing. This is a situation you can't be neutral on. You can't be, well, I want people on this side to be okay and the people on this side to be okay. That's just like saying, well, I want the enslaved Africans to be okay, and I want the slave master to be okay. I want both. Yeah, we could just get along, But long as you get along and we're peaceful like that, that means that the enslaver, that the colonizer, that the oppressor, that the exploiter gets what they want. They continue to enslave. They can continue to exploit. They can continue to colonize. They can continue to commit genocide and exploitation on people because we're saying, oh, we just want both sides. No, we can't be neutral on things like this because genocide, you can't be neutral on genocide. You can't be neutral on that. You either against it or are you wrong? Point blank. So, and we got to be real and we got to be strong on these type of subjects. We can't play games with this. And that's the thing that they tell black people, African people to do. They tell us we got to love everybody. No. Time out for that. Time out for that. I don't give a damn what they told you in your church. They lied to you. This conflict over there ain't got nothing to do with your Bible. It ain't got nothing to do with the prophecy. This got to do with some greedy white folks who want to take the land, period. And yeah, right, I call you white folks. A lot of times Jewish people say, well, we're not white. Them Jewish people are. Them Zionists are. Point blank. And I'm going to yield on it. We actually got a topic that we actually got to deal with. And it's all relevant to what we've been talking about because we got to bring it back home to New Africa, to our people. We got to bring it back home. What does it have to do with us? What should our foreign policy be? What should our position to be on these international affairs? And how in the world do we know if we're on the right side of history? So I'm gonna open this back up to my grandmaster teacher.
Yes, I want to say even if we talk about and most times when we find people that don't want to take a side, they want to be nonviolent. Then in that instance would be cowardice, and so if you're not on the right side or dealing with the right side, you're a coward. If you think that both sides are wrong or whatever, you're a coward. You're not taking you're trying to stay on the fence, and people that stay on the fence are going to be people that are most violated because the master has taken over their minds and their bodies and their souls and their places of life in the world. So when we talk about our foreign policy, it should be in what's in our interest as a people. We want to be free and united and liberated like any people in the world that has been oppressed or exploited. So we want to end all exploitation and all oppression by joining in the fight against oppression and against exploitation. And we got to recognize the capitalist system that is set up by and the United States is the head of the capitalist system of the world. But the other European nations, Europe and the United States, basically are dependent upon the resources of all the other people in the world that they have conquered, that they have exploited, and have done everything they can to destroy whatever democratic process that these people have. And so that's why we're for all the native people to get their land back wherever they are in the world. And we're for a struggle to overthrow the power of capitalism and create a system, economic system of the people, rather than an economic system of the white races Europeans, the European class system, and all those things that go into the development of capitalism. And we are also we're going to try we're going to deal with people in terms of that people got to understand they cannot hide behind religious designations or denominations or anything in terms of that deals with oppression. Because if you say you believe in good, then you know that your individual or your person that you believe in has to be has to be about good and not about evil. And for the word evil to come out of a mouth of a president of the United States like Biden or anybody, I mean, it's like all his teeth should have fell out at the same time that he was talking about the Hamas being evil or the action of Hamas being evil. And they have been and supposedly been advocating a so-called two-state, solution to the Palestinian question, and then they've been supporting the Netanyahu and taking over and expanding, settler farms, inside of Palestine and taking over and surrounding the West Bank and killing the people of the West Bank who are trying to keep their land, trying to keep their situation, and so all of that is lost. When they said before Hamas, when Hamas went in there, Hamas said 248 Palestinians have been killed from the West Bank by settlers, by Israeli settlers, by Zionist settlers that have come over from the United States and other places of Europe to settle and take over the land from the people who rightfully own it, and to keep the other people from coming back to their land of Palestine. In any book of old maps, you will find that this land is called Palestine all the way up until 1948. When Israel created this state, it was created by the United States and Israel, the people they call them Zionists. And so when you look at today's map, you don't see Palestine on there. But up to 1948, this land is known as Palestine. And then the Palestinians did not have a voice in the Zionists moving into their land and taking their land over. Although they did allow, because somehow these Zionists had gained control of at least fourth of the land, and they were given by the UN, given this portion. So since 1967, the UN has been demanding that they give the Palestinians their land back to move out of that, the areas of the Palestinians, so that the Palestinians can come and govern themselves. And they have created not only two reservations called Gaza and the West Bank, but they have also imprisoned the people who are inside the so-called Israel, who are many who are Palestinians, many Palestinians that are still there, and then they have kept out half of the population of Jordan who are Palestinians from coming back into their land.
And in addition to that, it's a long history of confusion and chaos that the Europeans have brought into play when it comes down to the Palestinians regaining control of their land. One of the things upon my research about the Balfour Declaration and all of that, I stumbled across there was a secret plan in 1916 called the Sykes-Picot agreement between the British and the French that plotted out and planned how they was going to get these states, these countries divided up to have a place for their brothers and sisters that was waiting in Europe to have their own place.
Right.
And so we must begin at some point to be able to determine the truth from just basic fundamental rules of law. And that is, if you wasn't there and you came there, then you are a settler. And you are a settler colonialist if you decide once you got there and settled that you was going to take control of the land and resources and occupy the land, then you're a settler colonialist. What our people have to understand is that this is representative of the European colonization of the world worldwide.
Right.
And it has been going on for decades and decades, centuries upon centuries. And then to add on to the confusion and chaos, when we come to current events, they tend to negate the true origin of the conflict and begin to talk about present day things that are going on, like the attack of Hamas on Palestine. But remember, because they are colonizers, they control the language, they call it Israel, an attack on Israel. They were attacking strongholds of a oppressor in their homeland. And in order to regain control of their homeland, they have to attack areas that the oppressor controls in order to rid them of their national territory. What they've done is control what the oppressor has done, along with genocide. They have controlled the media. So when we talk about them bombing Gaza, you can't even drive a car from one point of Gaza to the other point of Gaza because of so much damage the Israeli has done. And you mean to tell me that you haven't tried to annihilate the whole population? If you're trying to tell me that you have blockaded the border so that aid, medical aid, simple water, food, medicine can't go in and out of there, you mean to tell me that we have to go by your terms in which we are able to allow only 20 trucks to go in? That's a colonizer controlling the regulations, the laws, and the standards in which we live. No, you have no say-so in this because you don't belong there. And that's the whole point. This conflict would not be happening right now if simply a foreigner, European, so-called Israeli, was not in there, was not occupying the land. And that's as simple as that. And as a people who are going through their own struggles of being stripped of their language, their culture, their history, and being brought abroad and enslaved in a country that is oppressive and exploitive, like the capitalist system of the United States of America, we should understand the plight of our brothers over there in Palestine. And we should begin to create a united front with those that are on the righteous side of history, so that when we begin to embark on our challenge of creating our own independent sovereign nation here by any means necessary and all means necessary, that we'll do what's right now, so we'll have the support of our brothers and sisters in the future.
Definitely, good point. Yeah, and there's just a couple of things that I wanted to reiterate. I mean, because we always hear people say, you know, look at atrocities of the past. They say, man, like Nazi Germany, how could people follow what Hitler did? How could they accept that? I would never do that, you know. And that would basically, the people over Germany were just in Germany were just victims of a propaganda campaign. That's all that was. They believed the propaganda, which justified the actions. Right. The same thing is happening right now. The same thing is happening right now. And the Grandmaster Teacher said, we can't even allow you to hide behind your religion. You can't do it. But I mean, speaking of religion, like you say, if you believe the stories of Jesus, Yahshua,
the allegory.
Yeah. Well, according to the story, let me remind you of how the story went when they went to persecute, when they went to crucify Jesus, Yahshua. They hung him in between two criminals. And they allowed the people to decide which one do you want to crucify. And the people said, crucify Jesus. And a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't have been there. You a lie, because you're doing it now. You're on the side of genocide. If you are supporting this Zionist Israel, you are the same, just like the people who said, well, no, crucify Jesus. No, crucify Jesus. Put the Jewish in the ovens, the concentration camps. You're in the same thing, because that's the exact same thing that is happening. People are victims of a propaganda campaign that has justified crimes against humanity. And they think they're doing the right thing. Whether that's politically, you think you're doing the right thing, or religiously, you're doing the right thing, but it is because you have been misinformed. You have been miseducated. You have been educated on the side by the oppressor. And his education has fooled you into believing that his oppression is justified. And that's why we come in and we say we gotta re-educate the uneducated, and we gotta educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated, because this much of the world is under the influence in the hegemony of a colonial power that has committed crimes against humanity, and these crimes against humanity has led to their wealth, power, and influence, and they don't want to give that up. Period. They're not trying to give that up, and that just means that they have to intensify their oppression, their exploitation, and not only intensify it, but they have to intensify the propaganda surrounding it. They have to intensify the justification of their action, meaning they have to further indoctrinate and miseducate the masses of people, so the masses of people can just turn the blind eye to the genocide that's going on. But we're not going to turn the blind eye. We're not going to do it. And with our foreign policies, we have to be clear about what's actually going on, be clear about what a settler colony is, and understand that we don't recognize the legitimacy of any of the settler colonies, including those in the United States of America. That's why we're contesting land. That's why we're saying we want our own. But I'm a yield on it. We've been on for over an hour, just having a good old time with this conversation. You know, it actually time for us to get up out of here. Any final words y'all want to say to the people before we get out of here?
Yes, we must study. See, a lot of people say they're followers of Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a student more than anything else. And when we talk about these situations, because I had people that I've talked about, why would you be involved in this? You know what it got to do with us? You know, but if you are allowed, you are a witness to genocide. You are part of the genocide. You are part of the process that creates the genocide. And one thing that we also have to understand, like, if you're going to be a student of the Bible, be a student of the Bible, or whatever other religious book, religious group you may be a part of, and deal with the truth, because this propaganda has been printed. You know, in other words, the translations and all those things have led us to not be able to discern what the truth is. You know, so we got to go understand that there was over 1,000 different translations of these books, you know, and they have been translated by people who have called themselves a chosen people, you know, and including the people here in the United States, that they think they're the chosen people, and that the United States should have the ability to make war. That's why you can get $100 billion, you know, being supposedly taken to Congress. That is, you know, for war. You know, for war. And no matter that in Iraq they killed over 3 million people, you know, and Iraq did not invade the United States. Iraq did not kill, you know what I'm saying? But because the United States wanted that wealth of Iraq, they've used the so-called 9/11, so-called, as a result. That's the other thing, the propaganda they're doing. They're trying to say, they're saying two things. The Holocaust. This is the first time Jews have been killed. So many Jews have been killed since the Holocaust. So they were not a state, then. They were part of a German, or European nation. This was a European war. You know what I'm saying? That eliminated the so-called the many people. And a lot of people say it wasn't just 6 million Jews. It was 6 million Europeans. That the Germans, wanted to eliminate because they wanted to have power. And now you have this state of Israel that's doing the same thing. That's trying to create a Holocaust, for the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank. And but they're trying to blame Hamas, saying Hamas. They got the whole opposite thing different. And then they wanted to talk about some of the other so-called terrorists. This whole thing of terrorism. We have to begin, I guess, next week, talk about terrorism, what terrorism is and what it means, and what is the reality. Who are the real terrorists? That's in Zionists. The Zionists are the real terrorists.
All right.
The United States government is the real terrorist.
All right. And in my closing remarks, I just want to emphasize a point that you made, that they're putting out the propaganda that this hasn't been this many Jews, so-called religious people, they call themselves Jews, killed since the Holocaust. Had 98% of them showed up at the Twin Towers, it would have been more. But we're not going to go there because they didn't show up at the Twin Towers. But I tell you what, as as being part of the New African Independence Movement, I send this through the Atlantic Ocean, through the Mediterranean Sea, to the Palestinians out there. Free the land.
Free the land.
Yeah, agree 1,000% with everything that has been said. Kind of change the direction just a little bit before we get off air. I want to give a big happy Earth Strong Day to the President of the Republic of New Afrika, our queen, our sister, Salma Ott. Yeah, and I know how she do it. She gonna turn up and do it big time celebration. So big time now. I think she like 18, 19 years old now. She look like it. So stay strong, stay beautiful, queen. Enjoy it. So yeah, and as far as this, we have to understand that this system that has oppressed us in the United States of America is not just a system that is oppressing people in the United States of America. It's a system that is global. And we're dealing with a global oppression. And they are people who are globally oppressed. So when we look at foreign policy, especially as far as we are concerned, we have to understand that there is a global struggle. And we have to be a part of this global struggle, because it ain't just something that happened to Mike Brown or George Floyd or Tyrese Nichols right here in the United States. This is a system that is oppressing people all over the world. And what's happening in Palestine right now, that's just a part of this struggle. It is a part of the struggle. So, I want to give a big shout out to Melly Queen checking in. She said, yes, indeed, Earth Strong and many more. President Salma Ott, we love you. Enjoy Free the Land. Definitely good to see Melly Queen checking in. I see you say your class is kicking your butt. You would have been here a lot sooner. What kind of class did you win, Queen? I don't even know if we got time to answer that because we got to get up out of here. But yeah, anyway, good to see, hear from you, Melly Queen. But yeah, as always, man, we're gonna leave y'all with our battle cry. Free the land, fam.
Free the land.
Definitely. Cybersecurity. Okay, all right. We need that. And yeah, we bachelor's degree. That's what I'm talking about, Melly Queen. But yeah, let's go on, get up out of here, fam. We'll see y'all again next week. Check us out on the New African Perspective tomorrow. Free the land.
Well, how do you intend to gain possession of this land that you want, and how do you intend to get there?
That's a contribution that the black man made in this country, which amounts to 310 years of slave labor, for which we have never been given a dime or a cent, places a burden upon the American white man today for which the government should pay. Since we cannot live in peace together, mixed up on this continent, the alternative to that solution is to divide a separate part of this country into which our people can migrate, and in which the government again should supply us with the machinery and the tools necessary to establish our own independent society and our own independent country. And in this way, it will be creating a solution that the black man himself, our people, ourselves, can bring about if we have that capability. And for your clarification, because this has been brought up, some people say, well, why should the government do this? If this government can send billions of dollars to communist countries like Poland and Yugoslavia and to neutralist countries in Asia and Africa who have never made any contribution whatsoever to the sum net worth of this economy and country, and at the same time, this government feels that it is too much to set about something real to solve the problem for the slaves who made a greater contribution even than your people did, why the government doesn't even deserve to continue to function as a government.
What land is available that's not already possessed by others?
When you came to this country, the land was inhabited by the Indians, and you didn't have any problem with
Free the land, battle cry in our freedom call. Political prisoners in the system, we say free them all. You hear the call, haters never wanna see you ball. But I'm a freedom fighter, I just wanna see them fall. Standing tall, cause we trapped in the system, they slapped us in prison. Just a part of capitalism. I'm a revolutionary, I adapt to the system. I ain't playing with y'all haters, I come strapped when I kick them.
Black fist in the air as we walk through the door, representing Malcolm X and Assata Shakur. Queen Mother Moore, Batula, Shakur. Fight to free the land is what we doing it for. The struggle, the leader, for Huey, for Mia, Garvey Fred Hampton, General Hamisha, Grandmaster Teacher. He's blasting y'all, you're gonna feel it. The voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Afrika.
Free the land.
We got to have thinkers that are going to direct us in terms of how we're going to be able to achieve the goal of liberation throughout the world. We have the same problem. That is neo-colonialism. We have no control over any area in which we live. Matter of fact, we have been diminished, and all of those things have happened under the American system of capitalism. That's why we're saying we want to break away and create our own, and have our own self-government, and have our own control over our lives.
You're listening to the